It's okay. So, was it just last week that we did the Eon process?
Yeah.
Wow, it feels like such a long time ago. Okay, so look, basically that is the process that one should really be doing on a regular basis with the text, hopefully. I do want to, Mila, if you don't mind, I'll just share what I shared with you. And then we'll move on. We're going to learn the Mitteler Rebbe's chapter 1, continue with that. I was just listening to a podcast of some sort with Rav Daniel Katz, and he was saying how the Kabbalah, and I believe that the text that we're studying is like, it's Chassidus Kabbalah. It's certainly not, the regular kind of thing that we'd be studying, but he was saying that the Kabbalah is really like intimacy. It's like Hashem's intimacy. Hashem is sharing his innermost being with us through the Kabbalah, through what we're learning. And so, on one level, we learn it intellectually at first, because we just need to know what it is, like to try and understand and grasp the facts of it and the structure of it and the details of it. But really, ultimately, the Eon process becomes a kind of an intimacy with Hashem. And that's really the last part of that Eon process, where it's a deeply meditative process, where we just doing the histaklut, the gazing. And that becomes something that really that you do with yourself. And it is a kind of an intimate space. That it's an intimate space with Hashem, with you, with your neshama, with Hashem. And that's really where something special happens, something opens up in that place of intimacy. So, we try as much as we can, first of all, to teach the structure, because that's the gateway, the information, but the transformation that takes place really between the mashpia and the makabel, between in a more private space of meditation, of hitbonenut. So yeah, just to mention that. So Mila, opens over to you, unless anybody wants to ask anything about that.
I do have a question, if you don't mind. I think I have too many questions. So does that mean, I know like in the study of mindfulness, like many of us have done that, there's the formal and the informal. So is hisbonenus also something that you could do, not just while you're studying the text, but just like in the middle of the day, like something comes up and you just go into that space? Or is it only when you're learning?
No, for sure. It's if you remember that we were talking about the small talk, remember? In chapter 2, right? It becomes a way of life. It's not something, it's not no longer a skill. It gets so integrated in your life that anything what you do becomes the hisbonenus process. And this is where it says, right? Meaning the difference between v'yu kol ma'asecha l'shem shamayim, that all your deeds should be l'shem shamayim. That's one way of avodah. And the other avodah, it says, is b'chol derachecha de'eu, right? In everything what you do, you know him. So this is the goal. The goal is not only like, Okay, this is my time of study. I'm studying, and then I live. But it becomes a way of life. It becomes derech chaim, right? The way of life is I'm knowing Hashem in whatever else I'm doing. I'm engaged in. I'm walking, I'm eating, I'm sleeping. It becomes a way of life. But the beginning of it starts with awareness. Yeah, meaning starts with seichel. It's just the beginning, because this is where our consciousness is. Our consciousness is, by definition, begins with our mind, but it doesn't end there. And we want to bring that conscious awareness of God into all the aspects, because this is ultimately what his bonus is. His bonus is to explain us how the essence of God is present right here, right now, in front of me. How worlds are not shielding that revelation. How worlds are completely bottled, and they're not really hiding Hashem. They're actually revealing it to us. This is the whole goal of his bonus. And Rabbi Hillel, if you remember, by his yahrzeit, I shared, a few citation of Rabbi Hillel. And that's basically what it is, right? So that's, this is the goal. No, it's not only during the study, but it's just whatever else we're doing. We could connect to that reality, because we will have tools to do that.
But the point is, I think also, Nechama, because I'm not sure exactly, what you have in mind, but as Mila is saying, you build the tools with the text.
Yeah, what I have in mind is, it seems like the eon, the learning is like boot camp to train your mind to be. I see the starting point is training your mind to be present and not in the reactive state. And if you're not present in the moment, then there's not too much you can do with it.
Yeah.
Or does this sound too much like what some people might say, secular mindfulness, although I don't think there is such a thing.
That's what I want to try and distinguish. It's not mindfulness.
Well, I think that mindfulness is just a word, okay? It's just a big word out there. And it's, I think in former generations, what they call mindfulness now came naturally. And you didn't have to train somebody to be present. I mean, that's just where you, that's what I believe. We have more distractions than ever before. And the difference between people who get into mindfulness and Buddhist philosophy and all that is that it's more, that's the end, not the tool. But I do think that it's perfectly, I'm grateful that I learned all that, because I know how to do it. But it's not the end. It's just a tool.
Yeah,
Look,
I think what? Yeah.
It's difficult to know exactly, what's, what your experience is. But I would just say, like, if you were doing deep hitbonenut into this text, and then you would also be thinking about this text during the day, that's just how it works. It's like playing in the back of your mind. Then the experience is very different from mindfulness, because something happens when you're studying Kabbalah. Kabbalah it's something that's opening, it's expanding your mind, it's challenging your mind, it's changing your mind. It's not just about being mindful, and it will change you in a completely different way than it'll change somebody else. There's no common experience. I mean, there's certain levels of common experience, but it's you and the text. It's you and, your mind being changed and your experience being changed. But it takes, as he says in chapter 1, over and over again, it's yegia and it's das, and it's a And especially when something is difficult, it's overcoming that difficulty and breaking your brain. And that's when something happens. And it's tuvuna, it becomes something that not just a theory, but you get to a point where you've really integrated it.
I think also the mindfulness it's a very broad concept, and people say different things about what mindfulness is.
Right.
But to be in a
It's
present
a
moment,
buzzword in our world. It's a big buzzword.
Yeah, it is. And then a lot of times you just don't understand what they mean by it. What is mindfulness? I have no idea.
They say to be
But
mindful.
exactly. So one aspect of mindfulness to be in the present moment. Okay, so present moment, I don't think it has anything to do with Buddhism, in my opinion, because present moment, there are sikhs and ma'amarim, and even from our Rebbetzin, people asked her, like, what is the best moment in your life? She said, this moment right now.
And also the Baal Shem Tov taught about that we are co-creators, not just moments.
Exactly.
Each second we are co-creators.
Exactly. So, and the Rebbe says Mashiach now for some reason, right? So the present moment, and that's where the whole creation is happening. It's right now, right? The creation is not, and the whole beautiful sikha that the Rebbe gave on Chav Shvat, Motzei Shabbos. I remember, there was we were studying. It's a phenomenal sikha where what does this mean to have a bracha in time? Where the Rebbe talks about that the past is not existent and the future is not existent, and what truly exists right now is this present moment. So yes, in Chassidus, to be right here, right now, and when you do his bonus or whatever, or you davening, you should not be thinking about anything else but what you're actually doing right now. So all of it, it's mimela comes that you should be a kavana is a present moment. When people daven without a kavana, that means they're either thinking about the future or they're thinking about the past. The kavana is pirush hamilos, right? Pirush hamilos is the first stage of having a proper kavana before going into anything deep and contemplative, is really thinking about what words right now coming out of your mouth, right? Shivisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, right? This is the main kavana that we're supposed to have during the davening, is like right now I'm presently talking to Hashem. That's is present right here in this moment. So I know, Judaism doesn't make a big deal out of mindfulness, because this is the core of everything what we do. Of every single mitzvah supposed to have a kavana, and a kavana is right now I'm doing this mitzvah. So I should not be thinking about anything else but this moment. So it becomes like a foundational thing that people don't really talk about it, because it just comes, how else are you going to do this mitzvah if you're thinking about your past? Like it's just kind of like I think also with with Yiddishkeit, we are so flooded with mitzvahs. Can I know, right? It's like you don't have time to take one mitzvah and spend your whole life on it, right? It just becomes like it's a stream of engagement with Hashem. Now, when we're talking about other philosophies, they have a luxury of taking one thing and make a whole course out of it and make so much money, right? That's they take one point and develop it to such an extent that it becomes the derech chaim out of one mitzvah. And it's true, they have only 7 mitzvahs. So what do you want from them? That's fine. That's a good place. But with Yiddishkeit, we're overwhelmed. Like it's 600. You thought it was 613, but it's actually 620 mitzvahs, and each one of them has who knows what. And there's books, endless books written about everything, and that's just how.
So my point was that I believe that.
I just want to interject at this point. I think that we should really move on.
Okay.
Sorry to cut it short, but let's move forward. I think that the Mitteler Rebbe also talks about, what it is. So we'll see it there.
Okay, so we're going right here. We're going to start where we, originally left off. Right here. All right, so we left off after these long parentheses of the Mitteler Rebbe, right, that discusses the whole concept of Omek Rom and, you know, the 3 dimensions of the river, the mashal, and so on and so forth. We're not going to go into it. And our goal was, Bezrat Hashem, today to kind of conclude the first chapter with the Mitteler Rebbe, and we're moving forward. V'hu nikra iyun, right? And whatever we discussed up until this point is iyun, which means she'omed al davar hamuskal, okay, ume'ayin ba harbe ma'od, that a person is actually keeps his mind on a concept and analyzes it greatly. V'hu ha'ikuf hefach ha'mihirus, and this is slow, in-depth study, which is opposite of quick surface level of study. Okay, דהיינו כדי לבוא לעומקו של המושכל, כמו שהוא בעצם פנימיוסו בתוך תוכו דווקא. And the purpose of this type of study is specifically to reach the depth of the concept, and as it is in the innermost essential point. כמו המסתכל על דבר מה, okay? Like when somebody actually looks at something with his own eyes, and not in a fast way, in a passing way, right? And rather he keeps his eyes upon it with great attention and scrutiny, and taking his time until he knows it well in all of its internal and innermost components, right? He knows it very, very well. And this is called his bainanus with a double nun specifically, right? The hainu shemizbainen be'inyan bo harbe kmo pirush Rashi, right? That he actually does his bainanus and analyzes it a lot. And like Pirush Rashi said, la'amod ala davar v'la'avino al buriya, that he stands upon this thing until he understands it very well. Okay. V'nimtza b'chinas iyun hu davka rag b'chinas kli leb'chinas amakas hadas la'amaka debina atzma, I'm sorry. Okay, and we find that this aspect of iyun is only an aspect, which is the keli for the amakas hadas only, meaning the iyun, right, is only a keli for the deepening into the bina. Okay, why is it? Because in the world, people often use the term iyun for amakas hadas, but he says it's not how it should be. The amakas hadas hainu b'chinas kli levad lavo leomek shel inyano mamash. Right, so he says the amakas hadas is to come, not to understand the concept, but to come to the concept itself. And therefore, iyun brings you to omek of bina, not to omek of das yet. Okay. Okay, okay, hu nikra ma'amik, and which is above amakas hadas is the ma'amik, shemagia lemala min hachokma atzma, that he actually reaches above the chokma itself. Shahagam shachokma b'chinas ha'ayin mamash, that the chokma is the aspect of ayin mamash shel hamuskal, of the muskal, as we know. Okay, kodem shebaklal le'omek nekudas hamusak shebabina, before it comes into the point of understanding of the bina, which is like the ma'ayan, the wellspring, compared to the river.
Mila, can you just stop there for a moment? I've lost you a little bit. If you can just like say over what he said.
He wants to differentiate between the omek of bina to omek hadas. Because it says in the world his bainanus, the iyun, mostly refers to, meaning in the world, he's talking about among Chassidim, right? Like the people in Chassidim, you know, they use the term iyun to amakas hadas. But he says, wait a minute, it's not there yet. There is a step before that. Okay, so he says, Amakas of Bina, he uses, right? Because the iyun is supposed to bring you to Omek of Bina. From Omek of Bina, you need Amakas Hadas to go into Chachma, and another Amakas Hadas, which is Ma'amek, to go into Lamala Mina Chachma. But he makes a point in one sentence, obviously, right? Because that's the Mitteler Rebbe. Like, it says, there is this aspect of Omek of Bina, because you can't reach the Omek of Bina if you don't do your iyun analysis. Okay, that's basically what he's saying.
Okay, thanks.
And what's the analogy in the river? It's like you're still in a river versus you are in a wellspring. Right, that's the relationship. But we know that already from what we've learned. But the aspect of the deepening in the root of the muskal. So now we know what it is, in the root of Chachma. Right? Because the word muskal refers to Chachma. Remember, Chachma is Askala. So now when we're talking about the deepening in the root of the muskal, right, what is it? Its roots are coming to the roots that are actually bringing the wellspring, which is what? Gidim. Right? This is the roots of Chachma, the Gidim. Okay? V'nikra Amke Chachma. They are called the depth of Chachma, or Ta'aluma is Chachma, or the hidden aspects of Chachma. כי כמו שיש עומק ואורך ורוחב דבינה, הנקרא יש כנ"ל, the same way how the Bina has the עומק, אורך, and רוחב, כך יש עומק ורוחב במעיין דחוכמה. The same way there's the עומק and the רוחב in the מעיין of חוכמה, הנקרא עין. Right, so he's pretty much opening up something that not many people talk about, that Chokhmah also has those three aspects. Because people think like, oh, Chokhmah is ayin, that means there's nothing there. It's only a potential. But he says, no, Chokhmah also has that. And the Omek HaMa'ayan, and the Omek of the Ma'ayan, Omek of Chokhmah, Hainu, Tchilas Shoresh, Machtzavo B'omko. Right, this is the beginning of his connecting point in its depth, right? To his root, right? Shemisham mitpashet neviato lemala. That from there he originates his coming out. Ad shebakea, until he actually springs out. V'yoytze tipin tipin. Right, then he goes out drop by drop. Begilui right? When he comes to revelation from his concealment. But here he says he's coming as drop. But chilat, okay, ha'alma, hu tachlis amko lamata, right? And this is the beginning of his connecting to that root, is the beginning of his omek, down below. Kamom ayonot tahom nikba'u. I'd like the well springs of the tahom opened up. Okay, the ara bechaluli mechalala. Right, and when we're talking about that, it's all the way, from the depth of that aquifer. Okay, begidin, through gidim, sheyesh lahem omek rishon, that they have the first omek through the gidim. Right, and from there it says the chachma you find from the ayin, which is what? Mehelem ha-chachma, nikra omek ha-chachma. What do you mean you find chachma from ayin? That means the hidden aspect of chachma, which is called omek of the chachma, which is where? And the chachma is the beginning of the new seichel, right? That goes out like the lightning. So now we know what the depth of chachma. The depth of chachma comes from the aquifer, right? Aquifer, which is the tahom. She'eina rak ha'omek shel hasoga debina hamurgesh b'bchinas yesh, the Havana Davar Ma, Bezvara Niglis. Right? So what is that revelation of Chachma? The revelation of Chachma is the omek of the Hasaga. We know that, right? Because what's the omek of the Hasaga? How omek of Bina becomes Chachma? Well, very simple, because omek is nothing. Omek doesn't have an entity on its own. So when we're talking about omek of Bina, we truly mean we're talking about Chachma. However, if you remember, in first chapter, Rebbe Hillel does make a distinction between omek of Bina and how that transcends into the Chachma. Remember, there was two stages, B'derech Prat. But B'derech Klal, it's actually one thing, right? The omek of Bina, it's already entering into the realm of Chachma. That's why omek of Bina is very essential. Okay. Like omek shel hazvara, which is the omek of the explanation of the hasaga, hu b'chinas ayin shel hayesh. This is the aspect of ayin, of the yesh, of the hasaga bilvad. Ve'ein lo erech l'gabig ayin de chachma. And the ayin of bina is incomparably different than the ayin of chachma. Okay, because it's right when it's terem sheba leklal hasaga klal. And it actually comes to the understanding. And also not in an aspect of the omek that's in it, which is shuhu tamtzita. So here he already explains the difference, right? Difference between the omek of bina and omek of chachma.
Mila, would you say that up until this, what you've read now is pretty much what Reb Hillel described to us in much more detail?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. This is like a kitzur of
yeah.
It's like an overview, not an overview, but it's like the base what Reb Hillel took, and he gave us a lot of background information, and he was building us up until now, so we could actually read this way and say, oh yeah, I remember that. Yes, this happened, this. So it's because if you go into it without Reb Hillel, you'll be like, okay, but it's he expects you to know. Mitteler Rebbe expects you to know all these things, so you're familiar with these things. And when we're coming so many generations later, probably not everybody has that background knowledge.
Right.
Okay.
So basically,
what?
No, so you can also see how organized, Reb Hillel was. Like he explained Bina to us separately and Chochma to us separately and then put them together. Whereas here, like in this one sentence, the Mitteler Rebbe is going back and forth between Chochma and Bina and really expecting you to know that information. I'm not saying anything new.
Right.
Okay.
And it says, nevertheless, although the depth of Bina, right, which is called the 50th gate of Bina, right? It's also being drawn down from the ayin of the chachma to the yesh. How do we know that? Remember, we were talking about that Bina and chachma are both coming out from koach hamaskil. Right? Bina is not just a byproduct of chachma. We went through this, right, in the first chapter, that Bina comes out from the omek of chachma also. She's coming down from the same source, which is Tahom. In koach hamaskil, both Bina and chachma are packaged. It's very interesting. It is a harder concept to understand, actually, because it truly doesn't make sense. Why is it? But Rebbe Hillel, and this is just what it is. This is the Metzias. Okay. Sheshar shemigia the omek the chachma now, right? That its roots also in the omek of the chachma. The kenira b'chush shekol ma'amik Rag ba'omek hamusag, right? However, right, we see that everybody who deepens in the omek of the musag, okay, who mamtzi lemakor v'shorish hamuskal, he is being revealed also the shorish of the muskal. Okay, that's how we know. It's just when a person taps to the omek of the bina, he is being also revealed the omek of the chachma, which does what? He starts bringing the new insight into the light of chachma and bina. Okay, and this is the level of ma'amik. It's interesting because it's in a way, because of the structure, you skip a level in a way. Because if the chachma would be the byproduct, bina would be the byproduct of chachma, you would have to go through chachma as well. Okay, but here, it's in a way that is like this shortcut, that by you delving into the bina of bina, which is the iyun, you could reach the root of both of them. Do you know what I mean? And you're able to tap into and go on a level of mamik that will bring the chidush into chachma and bina. Right, and if you remember, we went through this whole thing, okay, Shemuvar b'ksavim, that is explained in the ksavim, the Hainu, Ayin Beis Vasag, right, that these are the two names of Hashem, right, Ayin Beis and Samach Gimel, which is Chacham Bebina, which is the Chachma of Bina, the Chachma of the Bina is only understanding the new chidush in the Bina itself, meaning the new explanation, but of the same Chachma. Okay, and that you reach through the iyun. That when one is mevarer, right, is to like looking through, like through all the parts of bina, of this understanding, and to understand it very, very well. And this is called bina of bina. It's done through bina of bina. ואחר כך יוכל להוליד ולהתחכם ולהמציא הבונה והשגה חדשה. And after that, he is able to give birth, right, and to conceptualize and to come up with new understanding into that concept. But he's able to do it only in the realm of bina, which is called the chachma of the bina. Right? But when he is able to reach the keser of bina, which is the omek of bina, you see what he does? If Reb Hillel wouldn't explain us that the keser and omek are interchangeable terms, like right now we wouldn't know that keser of bina is the same as omek of bina, right? But we're coming after the Reb Hillel, it becomes very clear to us, like, okay, but the keser of bina, or omek hamusak, is the omek of the bina, of the musak, of the explanation canal. Hamagir shorsha be'omek of chachma. Its shorish reaches all the way to the omek of chachma, and therefore, that's already haben b'chachma. That's already, the bina of the chachma, which is sag the ayin beis, right? Which is the name of Hashem is exactly the opposite, right? Not ayin beis of the sag, but this is sag of the ayin beis. But Reb Hillel doesn't really explain this whole part, this whole, Kabbalistic piece of two names of Hashem. Okay, kind of like, okay, let me first explain you the main parts. Which is the power of explanations of the Chachma itself. That he is able to actually come into the inner aspect of that explanation, which is above the comprehension of Bina yet. Okay, right? As we say, with the war with Moshe Rabbeinu, that Navoinim he did not find. Okay. Okay. That this is the person who understands one thing from another thing. Right? So he uses one comprehension as a stepping stone to understand something greater than that. That from the root of this power, which is Haben of Chachma, now, that he is able to reach the Omik of Chachma, that he's able to understand a totally new Chachma from this Chachma. Okay, because now he's in a pool, he's in this aquifer of all unlimited possibilities. So whatever he wants, he could grab there. He's already there. So whatever, based on his ratzon, he wants to understand, he will come. It's not going to be a random thing, right? But whatever he wants to understand. Okay, shezeu lemala mimadrega min ha-chacham, right? This is the level which is higher than the chacham. Dahainu migufa shel mitzius ha-chachma zu me'ayin, which is he understands it from this chachma of the ayin, right? Meaning he uses it as a stepping stone to understand something much higher. That he is, but he does not understand an entirely different wisdom from it. Okay, why not? Because Malcolm adds, right? So meaning the previous level, he doesn't understand a totally new chachma. He only understands a new understanding into the same chachma. Okay, but the second level, which is haben de chachma, he's able to grasp a totally new chachma. Okay, b'sharsha haben de chachma shemevin davar mitach davar, right? But the haben de chachma, he understands one thing from another. Rak shezeh behelem makor hasechel chulu v'dam. This, but however, this remains concealed in the source of the intellect, right? Meaning it's in the concealment, and if you tap into it, it becomes revealed to you, right? And this should suffice for those of understanding, right? Any questions for what we've done now? Again, there's nothing new. We did this before. No? Okay, so we're going to proceed. We need to
So
set it
I
on.
just want to mention that I'm following along in the English translation by Benjamin Walters, and I don't know if that's an easier way to do it, but it just seems that it sounds familiar, but like need to look over it piece by piece. It's not just, oh yeah, I know that.
It's okay, good.
What page are you on in
yeah,
Hebrew?
I'll tell you,
I mean,
just
maybe
find
other
this.
people do, but it's not, it's familiar, but it's a lot to take on in a short time.
Right, I'll tell you what it is. The translation is great, but I think translations, this particular translation, it's I don't know, like if I would go through this translation, I'll have like thousands of questions. Okay, but
This also
I try
doesn't
to
have any
focus
Hebrew
on
in it. It's only English.
exactly, and that's where the confusing part is. And I really appreciate the great work that Naria is doing, right? That she keeps very faithful to the terminologies that we already know. There's no point to translate Bina, and there's no point to translate Chachma, because it just becomes very confusing to the mind to kind of like discern. So yeah, we want an English translation, but it has to be a translation that we can relate to and we can really understand. And in some parts they do that. Like for example here, and this is called Bina of Bina. Thank you. Because if they wouldn't do that, that even further complicated, right? So I kind of like, try to stay to the text as much as possible. And this way we don't, the words become more of facilitating understanding versus further complicating it. Right? That's the whole goal. The whole goal of words, it should help us understand and not conceal. Right? So I'm trying to keep it to the Hebrew text as much as possible, because that's the closest what we could get.
So here there's also lots of explanations in between the translation, and I wonder if he's trying to do the same thing as Reb Hillel did. Or
possibly, I don't know.
My question is it helpful to read over this and look into his explanation?
Listen, I think it's very personal. If you, by reading this, clarifying things, then it's helpful. But if you, by reading this, further complicated, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's going on. So then, if you understand Hebrew, just go with Hebrew. That's what I would suggest you. Because sometimes arichus becomes a little bit more confusing. You know what I mean? If it's clarifying and it's helping you, and you really see it facilitating your learning, yeah, for sure, why not? But if it's further complicates you and you are like kind of like, come out of foggy from the session, so then it's not. But well, again,
to me, the mind map is the most helpful in absorbing it. The mind map and the drawings. And as far
I need to finish up.
As far as the Hebrew, like I understand a lot of Hebrew, but I need the help of the English translation to get the whole thing. So.
Yeah, but again, with the first chapter of Mitteler Rebbe is basically, as you could see, if you skim through it, he's saying that the importance of Iyun is the same thing as Reb Hillel, right? The importance of Iyun. The Iyun gets you not only into bringing a new chidushim to that understanding, but also a chidushim of a totally new concept, which is great. Okay, so he mentions the 3 levels of Iyun, Amak, Sadas, and Mamik, which is great, that we know. So let's see what else we could fish from here. Okay, Venimtza Seder Madregas Tach Hem. So here we find the order and levels. Bechinas Iyun Kanal, which starts with the Bechin of Iyun, the Amod al Buriya Chulu, Nikra Bina Shebebina, right? The Iyun is understanding things very, very well, and that's called Bina of Bina. V'lahavti Tachlis Hahafchana B'pnimis V'chitzonis, right? And here he is to clarify and distinguish between all the inner and outer specifics with the utmost precision. Okay, that's clear, right? That's what Iyun is. It's a beautiful definition of Iyun, a Bekitzer. Iyun is like, this is the concept, which is the Bina of Bina, and I'm understanding, what does this mean, Pnimis v'chitzonis? What is it? You read it, it's like, what Pnimis? Very simple. They are essential characteristics of things, and they are non-essential characteristics of things. And we need to know both of them. Because when we're learning, let's say, we're learning about fishes, right? So there are essential characteristics of what makes fish a fish. And then there's external characteristics that truly all living beings have, right? So this is Nimis and Chitzonius of the concept. Anything what we learn falls into this too. Literally anything. What's the essential? What is like I must know? And what enhances my knowing? Now, from chapter 2, we know that, right? There are things that are essential, and there are things that helps, right? This is the difference between, remember when he was talking about the Bina and Tuna? right? That the dibur, right? There's an essential letters, oisios, that are essential to the concept. And there are those that enhance the concept to make us understand much better. And this is what pnimis and chitzonius is. Because sometimes we could just write, oh, inner aspect and outer aspect, I don't even know what I'm saying, right? What I'm saying is that there are essential parts that make the concept. And then there are, like small talk that helps me understand this better. Okay, but without it, I could still understand. So this is what pnimis and chitzonius is. Okay, and even from there, we could bring an orech. What is this? Lahorid hahasaga levushim rabbi, to bring down the hasaga into many different other garments, meaning I could explain it differently. Like I went to a class, I understood it one way, but now I'm capable of explaining the same thing through different mashalim. Right? You've seen that happen a lot of times. Until I'm able to migashem, to make it understand by a little person, by a little child, which is great. Right? But not that I could expand to the sides. Okay, meaning I'm able to really concentrate and explain it to this particular child. Right, and then in an aspect of the chachma of the bina, right? Chachma of bina is a rochav of bina. Okay, now I'm more busy because chachma is it's something new. Now I'm able to bring something new into the bina. The rochav of bina allows me to bring something new. V'hu nikra rochav. Shemimeno koach the bina shebebina oisa b'chinas orech. That from this it becomes orech. Right? So the more I expand on the essential parts of the bina, the more I'm able to bring the orech, right? Bring them new mashalim, bring new explanations. Why? Because if I don't have a vast knowledge, vast comprehension on something, I cannot bring any new explanation, right? That's just very logical thing, right? The more I know about that concept, the more I do research on that concept, the more new insight, not new insight, the new levushim, I could enclose it to explain it to somebody else. Okay, the more, in other words, the more I understand it better, the more I'm able to explain it to somebody else. Remember, rochav is the way I understand things, and the orech, the way I explained it to others. Okay, the more expansive my own knowledge is, the more interesting and profound I'll be able to explain it to others. That's just how it goes. It goes hand in hand. Aval, shiur ha'orech va'arochav, the chachma shebabina, but the extent of the length and the width of the chachma of the bina depends who totally b'chinas omek musag. It actually depends on the omek of the musag. You're right. You cannot expand on something if you don't have depth. Where are you getting this from? Just saw a dream? No. You need to have the content, right? And that content comes from the omek of the musag. Keshenikra keter of bina. Kenira b'chush shalifi erech hachachma kach yeh erech harochav ba'orech b'chol hasaga davar ma. So he makes a very general. It is clearly observable, okay, within any bina, within any comprehension of any subject matter, that according to the measure of the depth will be the measure of the length and width, and this should be enough for to understand. So this is something that we know, right? Because where are you going to get the water from if there's no wellspring, right? So yeah, the river comes, but where the river is coming from? The river is coming from the omek. It's omek, which is the mayan. If there's no mayan, there's no river, right? So my vast knowledge of what? Of whatever that concept is. The deeper I delve into it, the rochav and orech comes out naturally. Obviously, it doesn't mean that it comes without work, but it comes out naturally. Okay, and according to this, whatever the world calls amakas hadas, ein ze gufu shel amaka. This is not amakas hadas. K'mo omek musik de bina. They truly mean the omek of musik of the bina. When they say amakas hadas, well, you already mentioned it 3 times, okay? For some reason, it's important for us to know that whatever the world calls amakas hadas, it's not amakas hadas. Because why? That what we just described right now, it's a purely intellectual thing of the omek, of the orach, rochav, and omek of bina. Has nothing to do with das yet. And he makes a point to distinguish it already. I believe it's the 3rd time that he brings it in the 1st chapter, the Mitteler Rebbe. Why is he doing so? Because he wants to show that you don't need to have das to do the iyun. It's a point that him and also the Rebbe Hillel made. You don't need to be special. You don't need to be feeling connected to anything, nothing. Omega das, you just need to have a peace of mind. That's all. Not the das. To do the iyun, you need to have peace of mind. That's it. You should have the thinking brain. And through this alone, you could come to a higher level of awareness. Because das is awareness of the thing. In our context, is of Hashem. So what he's saying, and he's making a point, that you don't need to have das to come closer to God. Bina is enough. Bina everybody has. I mean, any normal person has Bina. That's how we function. If we wouldn't have Bina, we wouldn't function in the world. We would be probably in a psychiatric unit. Yeah, but we're not. We're here. That means we have Bina. Every single one who sits in this room has Bina. So use your Bina and you'll get to your das. And he says over here again, and according to what we have explained, what is commonly called amakat hadas, right, the delving of the concentration, ein ze gufa shel amakas, right? It is not actually amaka. K'mo omek hamusik de bina, like the omek of musik of the bina, shelazeh yesh shaychus ledas, lo yesh shaychus ledas. That okay, that it doesn't have anything to do, no relation to the das. Achadas, it says what does have relationship to that? Who bechinas is kashrus hargashasai b'musag b'yosef. That the faculty of das, right, is the aspect of the strong connection to one's feeling to an aspect. Okay, v'hu shemevi lidei bechinas amakas b'musag. Right, and that what brings to the amak of the musik. That's what brings, meaning that's what kind of culminates the whole process of iyun. Iyun brings you to amakas hadas. Well, that's a very logical thing. If you become obsessed about one concept and you invest in it, you invest your time and your effort and your yigia, and you learn all the details, the chitzonius, the pnimius, and so on and so forth, you eventually will start developing a feeling towards it. It's going to become emotionally connecting. It's not because you invested yourself in it, right? Anybody who invests themselves into anything will start loving it. Okay. So this is what is he talking about? The connecting feeling to a concept is what called amakas hadas. But we don't need to be invested in this amakas hadas from the beginning. The iyun does not require amakas hadas. That's why he makes a point to explain this to us. You don't need to have amakas hadas to begin. But that's what will come as a result of it. As a result of your efforts, okay, you'll come to amakas hadas. If you delve into something, you automatically will feel connected to it. Das is connection. But you don't need to have connection to start. That's the point. Okay?
Before you go on, do you want to just stop and answer Nechama's question on the chat.
Oh, sorry, I did not see that. Yes. What is mean by what the world calls amaksadas, intellectual activities? Can you please explain musak? Musak is understanding. Right, so now I'll start with the second one. Okay. So amaksadas apparently, again, like, we are coming from a world that has no concept into iyun and no concept in amakasadas, and nobody calls anything, right? So for us, this question, it's a confusing question, right? But Mitteler Rebbe talks to his Chassidim, okay, and his Chassidim in his times used to interpret iyun as amakasadas. Basically, they used to confuse the term iyun with amakasadas. And the Mitteler Rebbe makes it clear to distinguish, says 3 times already at least, no, iyun is not amakasadas. Why is this so important for Mitteler Rebbe, who stopped 2 times of his Kitzur Shebekitsur of Shar Yichud, first chapter, to make a point? No, iyun is not amakasadas. Now, my humble opinion is because a person might mistake it. When we're going to interchange the term of iyun with amakasadas, person might think, in our generation right now, because the Rebbe has a responsibility not only to talk to his generation, but he's talking to all the generations that comes after him. So he wants to make sure that nobody from us are mistaken to think that you need to have das to begin the process, right? Because if iyun means amakasadas, the person might say, like, I don't feel connected to this. I don't like it. What is this? It's a bunch of levels, bunch of concepts. Who needs it? I don't feel connected. Therefore, I have no shaykhus to it. That's what it means, right? So therefore, I'm not going to do it. But the Rebbe says, no. You don't need das. You do not need das. You do not need to feel the connection to it. Just do it. Just do the work. Dry, cold, intellectual. Who cares? But just do the work. By doing the work, by doing the iyun has such a great, lofty level, which is higher than das. That's we know from Rebbe Hillel. He didn't say that yet here. But he said the iyun will take you also to the place of das. Meaning through iyun, you will reach the awareness that you're seeking to have. But it doesn't begin with that. You have no connection. You are dry. You're not interested. It's boring. Say whatever you want, right? About doing iyun. It says do the iyun. You'll get there. Okay, so this is a little bit liberating because you're like, okay, I don't have connection. I don't need to do anything, but I'll do it. And we actually see this is the explanation of Mezritch Magid of Shema, right? When we say Shema, the Shema Yisrael Hashem Lakin Hashem Echad, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchus Eloheinu Bayit. And then the first thing we start with Ahavta. And Mezritch Magid asks the question, how can Hashem command us to love him? This is too much. Can you command somebody to love somebody? Oh, to fear. Yeah, makes sense. You need to fear Hashem, but to love Hashem. How can there be such a commandment? Love me. This is not normal, right? You don't command people to love you. If they love you, they love you. If they don't love you, they don't love you. You can't command a person to love you. But what does this mean? The Mezritch Magid explains it's truly not a commandment, v'ahavta. Shema is the command. Shema. When you do Shema properly, v'ahavta comes naturally. Okay, what does this mean? That's exactly what this means, what we're discussing here. When you do Shema, when you do your understanding into God, you come to love it. When you do iyun properly, your das will kick in, your das elyon, your das tachton, you're going to be fine. Okay, the core here, the focus is on Shema. You do Shema properly, the rest is, the rest will suck you in, basically. Okay, but you're not in a pneumius yet, right? The person finds themselves far away. So how are you going to get there? Where's the shuttle to get you to the main line? So the
Mila?
shuttle is the iyun.
Also, I wondered when we were studying Reb Hillel, he also was very specific about this. When we were talking about the Omek of Bina, where he would say that the iyun will bring you to the Omek, but then the Hamakas Hadas kicks in and will take you into the Chokhmah, meaning that the iyun itself can't take you. That's how I understood it. It can't take you all the way. And I was wondering if this distinction is also to tell you that when you're doing iyun, it feels like there's an aspect of doubt to it, of that you have to be very hyper-focused and involved in it, and you're thinking about it. That's the nature of at least the Rochav. When you get to the Rochav, it feels like you really connected in a way of Das. So I'm wondering if he's also not saying, like, don't get confused. That is not yet Das Elyon. Like,
yes, because you're involved in the concept. Yeah, you're right. He's saying that Das, remember the definition of Das, knowing the thing, not knowing about that thing.
Right.
Because Bina, it's still yesh, it's knowing what you know of that concept, but it's not the concept itself. The Das, the Das is experiencing God.
There's no intimacy yet. Because Das is basically intimacy.
Exactly.
So
it's knowing the thing.
Wow, I'm in it, but actually I'm still in the Bina concept. I'm still in that process. And there's something much deeper than that experience where you kind of lose yourself.
Exactly. You are still self-conscious. You're right. In the process of Bina, right? In the process of Bina, you are still, you and the concept are two separate things. Your understanding of God. It's not your experience of God. I think that's a great point. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that also speaks a lot to, I've been thinking a lot about Nechama, what you were saying. It's like, when do I go back? When is it me? And when do I have to go back to the text? And how far? Do you remember you were asking this question last week? Like, how far can I go away from the text and I come up with my own ideas? And this kind of answers to it, that at some point, when you're in the Rochav, it's you and your ideas and the text and the concept, but there comes a point where you reach the Omek, where there's an intimacy with the idea itself. And there's a kind of bitul that happens there. There's an ayin that happens in the Omek, where you then experience this concept, not just my own thoughts about it or my own references about it, but that particular concept itself.
So you're saying then at that point, your thoughts or your feelings or images is going to fit into the kalim of the iyun. You won't be like far afield.
And it's, in a sense, the iyun ends. The iyun takes you there, but then something else happens. So the iyun, that process of thinking about it in different ways and trying to understand it, is
it's like, it's like bringing into the life experiences is like, your husband becoming your husband. You know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like,
or you're dating and you made the decision to get engaged.
Exactly. So the engagement, even process, even after the engagement, look at the words, engagement, right? You're engaging with that person. You know what I'm talking about? But on a very chitzonius level. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So I think
but then you get back to the person, and it's a different relationship already. It's not about knowing that person. It's actually experiencing the unity. It's a shift So the eon takes you through the engagement process, but then you marry.
So I think probably my question was, how do you know that you're still in the process? And what I'm hearing is that maybe you shouldn't doubt yourself.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great thing. Now we're going into consciousness spirals. Consciousness spirals, it's a beautiful work that takes you step by step of what happens to you when you go through the eon process on 5 levels. Okay, what really happens to you? And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But there, it's a whole detailed explanation of all the levels of how self-awareness shifts and dissolves into an experience, and what to do and what not to do, and all kinds of different ways. And it's like a whole conscious on its own. It's a beautiful, yeah. If anybody wants, maybe we could study it. Because now that we are actively involved in the eon, questions rise, right? Like, oh, like right now you're asking, like Nechama is asking, like, where am I? Am I, what is my awareness? Where is it? How do I know if it's real or if it's not real? Yeah, these are the questions we ask when we do real avodah, because that becomes very practical. Like where things.
For myself, I know what's real, but then I look at my environment around me and like, sometimes there's a gap between my realness and where everybody else is at.
But don't worry about everybody else's.
But then there's always the desire to connect. And, there's a mitzvah to not separate yourself from the community. So, yeah, it's a process.
Yeah, but there's also a mitzvah to, to be authentic. I guess there's a mitzvah to be authentic.
Miriam, you have a question. You need to unmute yourself.
No, what came to mind when we were talking about mindfulness was, the awareness of what's going on inside of us, and becoming more sensitive to our thought processes and our feelings and what's going on outside of us. But I think for me, the other process of what we're learning about Eon is about my perception, and that's what I think changes. So I can be present, I can be mindful, but my perception of the world and how I see things has changed. It's there's a slight shift in the way I see things, and that's why it's not really mindfulness. It's like connected, but there's something different about it. But yeah, that's just what I wanted to say.
Right.
Wow.
But I think that there's a certain bittul that needs to come with that perception, and understanding that my perception is only my perception.
Miriam, you're muted.
But that is the aspect that we're working on. I mean, you can't change what is going on around you to the extent of really, you being mindful of it, but to transform it and to change it and to infuse somebody else with the way you see things you can communicate, but it's quite a process. And I believe what we're doing is transforming our own perception of, and our own connection to something higher. And it's the work that we're doing that's why we're doing it. We're wanting to transform ourselves. We're wanting to become more open and become more receptive. And you can't do that for somebody else. So I think, this is the perception of the world around us changes when we do this work. And that's just my feeling about
I think that is the difference between Iyun and mindfulness, is that the process of Iyun on a text like this is meant to change your perception, as you say, Miriam. Not that it'll change something about how you see the world if you really do the Iyun, because we're doing Iyun into into Hashem, into I don't even know how to
Action.
talk. Let's just
Yeah.
say, so when we really do Iyun into it, so something changes in our brain, which means something changes about how I perceive the world. And the more that I do it, the more, my perception will shift and align with the truth of it. All right, let's carry on and try to get.
Okay. Well, if he's a mashikorim okay, we did that. Achadas ubchinas is kashrus, right? The das is the aspect of his kashrus, v'hargashosai b'musag biyoser, right? U'shemevi lidei b'chinas amakas amusag, achar b'chinas ha'iyun anal, shehu rak mo b'chinas kli l'omik ha'asaga kanal. Right? But the faculty of das is the aspect of the strong connection of one feelings to the concept, right? It's the type of concentration which brings one to the depth of comprehended concept, okay, but only after the iyun, which acts as a keli for the depth of the comprehension, omek hamusag, as previously explained. Okay, now he goes into the das. Gam b'das yesh orech rochav v'omek. Right? Das also has the 3 dimensions. Mo yesh mi shedat ktsara. Okay, we have somebody who has a very short das. V'yesh shedat arucha. He has a long das. V'yesh dat rechava, and he has a wide das. V'lo arucha v'das chazak v'das kal kanashim. Or not long one, but a very strong das, or a light das, like the woman, shadat and kalis, right? That the das is light. But who built the omek hadas? And this is without having the omek hadas. B'meila dat aktsara, and automatically his das becomes short. V'hafresh zeh ben kli hadas la'omek hadas, right? And the difference between ben kali hadas, between the people who have very light das to the le'omki hadas, the one that have very deep das, which is the difference between gadol lekatan yadua, the difference between an adult and a child. Shahatinok, that a young child, shadato kal, that his das is very light. Hainu she'in b'koach Amargish haiskashrus klal ledavar zeh. But what does this mean? This means that he doesn't have the power to feel the connection to that thing at all. Shemevin orotze, that he understands or what he wants. Rag b'chitzonius mi'od, only superficially, right? Okay, v'im kain yitpateli fuchui, and if so, he easily gives up. Or gives out to the opposite. Not only gives up, but he could be persuaded to the opposite. And it's not like that by the gadol. Shadatu amuka, it is a very deep dat. Davar, in the thing that he understands or he wants. And he calls it amakasadas. That automatically brings forth the omek of the das, orech of the das, the length of the das, v'rochav of the das canal, bina, the same way how it's bina, right? So he shows that in bina, before he explained how omek of bina is responsible for the rochav and for the orech, The same thing is with das. The omek of das bring forth the rochav and the aura. Okay.
Mila,
Now, yes.
I hate to bring this up, but it sounds very, what is this thing of women have a light das? And then he says it's like light das is like a katan, like that you don't have a deep connection to the thing. How do you understand that?
I think literally, that's just what it is, women, at the same time, Bina Yisera needs no Nashim, right? The women have extra Bina. And there's a reason for it, because, of multitasking nature of the woman's responsibility in the household, right? If she would have given a deep das, okay, she would be like, okay, I'm washing dishes right now. Therefore, I cannot take care of my child. I'm fully engrossed in this activity, right? And many men do so. Many men cannot multitask for that reason, right? That's why, it's very difficult for them and very straining for them to make sure that your toddler doesn't fall or doesn't get into a trouble, yet wash the dishes, yet keep 1,000 things in the mind. They're going to fail in this. So Hashem kind of divided the responsibilities. Okay, so since the women are naturally going to be those who are going to be taking care of the families, they need to have Bina Yisera. What's Bina Yisera? To hold many details in them. Okay? But Hashem took away the deep das from the woman, because then, I don't know, he wanted large families, then, you know what I mean? Things happening in the house. Okay, I'm cooking fish now, therefore I cannot cook cholent at the same time. You understand what would happen? It's just not going to be shalom bayis, that's for sure. So Hashem kind of like took away the das a little bit. That doesn't mean they don't have das. It's just das is not as powerful as by many men.
It's almost like what he said before. When you're in Bina, you're not in das.
Okay, yeah, fine. But then he gave us das.
Right.
I'm sorry, then he gave us Bina. Right? So because, you can't take away something. Like that is beautiful. So Iyun, it's actually amazing for women. It's like our comfort zone. Okay, do your Iyun. You understand? You will get your das as a result of it. Right. You understand? That's what he's saying. So therefore, it's like, okay, you don't have das. Okay. But you could still do your Iyun process and get your das. Get your experience of das and be really. And it is known that women do get distracted even during the most intimate processes. This is just very normal. The old books write about it, right? That the mind of the woman is who knows where, and it's like, and men usually don't have that problem, okay? They lock into the experience, and that's just what it is. I'm talking about normal men, right? I mean, we're very generalizing. We're very generalizing, okay? Yeah. But that's just what it is. Meaning women could have, intimacy without actually being present. By men, nothing will happen if they're not present. Like the whole process can't happen simply just physiologically if they're not present. They can technically do the task without being fully present. By women, they could be just passive participants without actually having anything to do with this. Yeah, that just, it's a phenomenon in a way, but also physiologically. However, they will not have full benefit of the experience. It's quite, you understand what I mean? Like, it's a phenomenon. Why Hashem did this, I have no idea. I guess women need to work harder. Women need to work harder in that process. But that just, what it is. I don't know why it is. But I was explained that it's because of the tasks that the woman needs to do. But I'm sure there's deeper meaning behind it. But I could see, like many men, when they cook, like they can't do all the aspect of it. Or when they, maybe with cooking, yes, because they're very good chefs. men chefs. Actually, probably more good men chefs than women chefs, put it this way. But I think it's also multitasking of different things, like taking care of kids and do shopping and do this and different, not just only one aspect of cooking. It's just like becomes like a very, and I guess that's just, my favorite thing. This is the system that Hashem chose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. V'siman la'makasadas, right? How do we know that we have a makasadas? Hu asher nira ke'inyan tzimtzum v'kibutz kli hamach, right? That's what is the sign of deep concentration. It is that because of the great depth of his connection to the concept. It appears as if he is contracting and focusing the vessel of his brain. Interesting, he uses the word tzimtzum. That's very interesting. Okay, otzmam omeka iskashrut b'muskal, right? Okay, that comes with a great, significantly through the deep concentration, that he can come to an essential, right? That through this he comes to the essence of the omeka musag. So this is what he says, right? So through this, the siman of das is that he's able to concentrate, right? That the power of his intellect to such an extent that he's able to come to the essence of the omeka musag. Meaning omeka musag, he comes through the eon of bina. But to the essence of omeka musag, he comes through das already. Okay? So yes, it's true. Do you need concentration to do iyun? By all means, for sure. If your mind is scattered all over the place, you can't gather. So they need to be concentration. But that yet not das. It's not das yet. The das will bring you to the essence of koach, of omeka saga. This is the key word, right? To the essence of the omeka saga. But that's the hefech of a tzimtzum v'kivutz, which is the opposite of the tzimtzum of kivutz. Shaharei ha'iyun debina, right? However, the aspect of analysis is the very opposite of the concentration of focus. Right? The iyun of the bina is the opposite of concentration and focus. Wow. Gam sha'omet u'ma'okev b'tzimtzum kivutz atchalasei. That in the beginning, that's interesting. He's explaining something that Rabbi didn't explain, right? Yeah, it becomes interesting. So now it's very interesting. Like, what is the difference between das? Das is the kivutz and tzimtzum of his whole entire attention until it completely dissolves in the thing itself. Okay, but the iyun is not, which is the opposite of the kivutz, of the tzimtzum and kivutz. In the beginning, although initially the analysis of bina begins with focus and concentration, with chilosik, aval miyad, but right after that, mitpashad l'rochav harbe b'chol pirtei chelkav. Right. So right after that, it immediately spreads forth to great expansiveness. Okay. B'havchanas protius harbe k'yedua. Okay, with the clarifications of all particular components and details as known. So even though like you need to concentrate, but then you right away widen up and you start seeing all the details play at the same time. So for that, you can't be concentrated. You, on the contrary, need to open up and allow all that, play at the same time.
It's a really beautiful description here, the way he says how in order to get into the iyun, you have to have hyper focus, but then you get that place where you're doing a lot of, what's the word, where you think about other, like oh, this
functions,
is
right?
you know, like you're looking at it from so many different dimensions that it really, that's really what happens. You know, and you can't stop that process. That is that second stage. Like once I start to understand it, then I make associations. That's the word that I'm thinking about.
Right. And this is not the case with the concentration and the focus and the delving of the concentrations. It is only tzimtzum. On the contrary, the concentration is only the concentration and focus, an aspect of gathering all of one's mental capacities to connect only to that specific matter. Okay? שזה הפך בחינס ההספשטוס, לעיון בהרחבס עניין המושכל. Okay? And this is the very opposite of the spreading forth of the analysis with a great breadth into the subject matter. ואמנם על ידי העמקת הדעת, בא לידי העמקת המושכל, עד ששורשו בעומק חוכמה ובינה. However, it is through the delving of the concentration that one can come to the depth of the concept until its very source in the depth of Chachma and Bina. So meaning, Eon is like a room with all different components of the concept, is a space. But then after that, you need to kind of re-engage and focus on concentration, okay, to be able to come to the levels of the depth of Chachma and Bina. Meaning you need to have context into what to do Amakas Hadas to. You know what I mean? Like the Eon provides you the details, after which you need to gather them all into pieces by pieces and do Amakas Hadas. Because you cannot do Amakas Hadas into what? You don't have context. So now, what's Das Elyon? The aspect of Das Elyon, the Mezivuk Chachma and Bina, okay, כמו שכוסף למעלה בעניין עומק המושג דבינה, היינו דדס גונוס בפומה דאימה. Okay, through the above, okay, he is capable of reaching the aspect of the apadas, which unites Chachma and Bina, and was explained previously regarding the matter of the depth of the comprehension, Omeka Musik of Bina. This is the meaning of the statement, Das is hidden in the mouth of Ima. Okay. Kosha Amru Moshe Shu Das. That is explained that Moshe is Das. Zachal Bina Shu Shar Nun. That he was worthy of Bina, which is the 50th gate. Ki ha b'hatalia, because one depends on the other. B'kama shekosu b'ksovim, b'kama dev'kasiva v'nal. That's very interesting. Okay, these two faculties are interdependent, as explained in various writing and Hasidic manuscripts. This was also first understanding. Okay, Mazel Tov.
I have a question though. That was asked of me. Somebody asked me this question and I didn't really know how to answer it. You know, if we say that the Omek of Bina is the 50th gate of Bina, and like only Moshe Rabbeinu managed to get there. So how can we even imagine that we can, you know, get to the Omek of Bina?
It's in the Parsha. It's in our Parsha. Did you do your chitas yesterday? It says, you do what the whole Devarim, right? The whole Akib. It's a beautiful Parsha. It's like Don't think that you're coming into the land because of your own merits, your own, tzidkis, okay? There's nothing to do. I just decided to bring you, to choose you because of your forefathers and to bring you into this land, okay? And you do what is on you to do. Rebbe says, what's it called? It's in Chumash, it says, and you do what you have to do, and I'll do what I have to do, period. So we cannot enter into this cheshbon, oh, these nations are so greater than me, and I'm this, and I'm that. Basically and if you look at the psukim, he says, you're coming from the land of Mitzrayim, and in Mitzrayim, right, you basically, Rashi explains, you had to bring the waters, because the Mitzrayim also has upper and lower parts. And the Nilus, how the water was given. Right? But look at this. In our context, the mashal is amazing, right? So the Nilus would give you the water. So now those who were on the lower parts, the Nilus took care of the field, right? The Nilus took care of the field. But what if you want to upper side? What are you going to do? So you had to schlep water. You literally need to schlep water to nourish your fields with it, right? And Rashi says, well, that's not the case when you are going to be in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael, you could be sleeping. In your sleep, Hashem takes care of your fields. What is this? What the significance of being on your own, schlepping the water to nurture? Because this is like a very Mitzrayim, the land of Mitzrayim is your ego. Okay? Is our ego. We are doing those things. We are so great. I'm schlepping this water and nourishing my fields. And this is the work of my hands, that's giving me this beautiful fruit. And in Eretz Yisrael, it's an awareness of God. It's a different modality altogether. Okay, that's where my ego completely dissolves. I could go to sleep, and Hashem is going to take care of my fields for me. I do my little thing that I need to do as a farmer, right? And we are farming our brain right now, right? I do my part, and then I go to sleep, and Hashem takes care of the rest. Why should I worry about how it's going to make me become aware of Shar Nun of Bina? That's his part. And it's truly, we could earn 49 gates. From other works of Chassidus, we're talking about Shar Nun of Bina, it is quite like a lofty level. But we take care of 49 gates. Let us take care of this 49 gates. And the 50th gates will come from above. It's our emunah. That's what I was actually in Eretz Yisrael, there was no one drop of rain, right? The whole 13 days. But that's just what it is, it's like, it makes us feel good when we schlep water, although we work very, very hard. But then we feel like, oh, this is me who is accomplishing it. But when we realize that we are co-creating, and co-creating has the advantages of having another co-creator as well. I'm not doing it alone. I'm not a creator. I'm a co-creator. Right? So when I'm a co-creator, I could lean on my other co-creator, and I co-create my part, and my partner is going to co-create his part. How is he going to do it? I have no idea. It's his problem. After all, it is. He brought us into this, into this reality, created us on every single second, in millisecond, whatever that is. He's continuously, intentionally recreates us. And here we are.
What's interesting regarding the rain is that I only understood this when I came to Eretz Yisrael. There is no rain in the summer. That is why you don't pray for rain. You just pray for dew. And in the winter is where there's rainfall. So I'm sure there's there's spiritual significance to that as well. That it's not all year round that you get rain. And you see that Israel has developed this incredible drip technology, which takes the water that is so necessary during the summer to keep everything alive. Oops. Mila, I think Mila ran out of battery because earlier it said that her battery was really low. Okay, does anybody have questions or want to make comments about what we learned?
Can I don't like
Yeah.
the only one talking, but I want to
okay.
get back, I want to clarify that when I talked about mindfulness, I was in no way implying that it's equivalent to Eon. But when Mila said that Eon requires peace of mind, my theory is that now we need to be taught how to get that place of being centered and focused and peace of mind in order to even begin the hisbonenus. So that, I mean, my understanding of, I mean, when I teach mindfulness to people, mindfulness is just focus. That's really all it is. And focus brings calm. So it's no competition, but it's, and I think it's not surprising that the secular world has come to this, that, you know, that it's fashionable. And also I know Tzvi Friedman wrote an article, people were asking him about Jewish meditation and mindfulness in Buddhism. And he actually said, contemporary Buddhism is more Jewish than it is Buddhist.
Right. Look, one of the ways that I've heard that Hitbonenut described is that rather that, you know, is that it's meditation that comes after study. Like first you study and then you meditate on what you studied. So mindfulness, I don't know, you know, I don't know what, when you teach people, what are you mindful of? Here, the question might be, well, what is going to bring me to the text? What's going to get me to start doing the Eon? How will I, you know, make that time and that focus and that energy to begin the process, to go to the text and begin the process. But then once you're in the process, then it's a very different experience. He described it there very clearly, is that at first there's this focus that you need to start learning. And then once you're in the learning, once you're in the Bina of Bina, suddenly it opens up. And you're in the Rochav of Bina, and you're looking at it from so many different angles, and it brings up other associations. So it suddenly opens up, and you're in this Rochav. And then if you continue, you'll go back to you'll leave all of your associations and that Rochav and go back into a hyper focus in order to get to the Omek and Hamakas Hadas, which becomes an experience of the thing itself. And I think he describes that quite beautifully in the last couple pages there. It's interesting to me how he describes that. So I don't know where mindfulness comes into that, except to say that mindfulness could maybe help you to get to the point where you can start the Eon process.
It's all about being present, and anybody that's into that always comes up. And if you're studying the text and that's your intention, then that's it. The focus is being present in that.
Right.
And we can't take that for granted nowadays. I mean, at least not myself. I'm distracted by everything.
Wow. Okay.
And because we live in a world of distractibility. Everything's going on to take us away from the truth.
It's interesting. I in one of my distracted moments when I'm just looking at headlines, I saw a headline that seemed to suggest that some of the top thinkers in the world, you know, the top entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and various, maybe Bill Gates, these kind of people, they have what they call the 5-hour rule. And the 5-hour rule is that for an hour a day, they study something new. An hour a day for 5 days of the week. And that keeps them, you know, and it's focused study. Like somebody like Bill Gates, he reads a lot of books. You know, it's like a growth mindset kind of thing. So it's an interesting idea. These are people who are hyper-focused on other things, but this is one of the things that they know they need to do in order to I don't know, to stay competitive, to stay to be growing. And I don't know, that's just what came up for me.
But that's, to me, that's not a spiritual concept. That's just, it's known in neuroscience that that's how you keep the brain sharp, by learning new things.
So I'm not saying a spiritual concept at all. I'm saying it's a kind of a discipline. And so getting, the Eon process begins with discipline, the discipline of, setting aside time, and of focusing. So that's all that I'm saying. It's like it's a known thing. But then the journey of Eon is very different than reading a book that's written by a person. Here we're talking about Torah, and the place where it takes us is going to be different. So that's where, it's like, what are you being present to? What do I choose to be present to? And as women, as it says, we have light das. It's maybe more difficult for us. But, for myself, I find very often it's hard to get myself to the text. But once I'm in the text, then time disappears and an hour goes very, very quickly. But sometimes it's hard to get kind of into the flow, or get hooked, get beyond the multitasking and the distractions.
But Maria, I love that. What do I choose to be present to? That gives us agency.
Right. Yeah. All right. Anybody? Sarah, Sevilla, Alkalea? No, nobody's there, or somebody's there. Cody, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I want to say thank you very much.
What did you get out of it that you want to say thank you very much?
Everything that was said about concentration and how much just focusing, just investing yourself, even if you're not interested or you don't feel concerned, but that effort will take you to be interested and to desire to invest yourself.
Right. That is the dat, because the dat is connected to the chush, to the interest. Yeah. And, in a way, in the beginning, it's hard because we only really connect to the chitzoniat of it, like the externality of it. But when we start to get connected to the internal, like what's inside, then it's really neshama work. But it takes effort to get to that place. And
explain neshama work.
Well,
please?
I'm saying, I'm just using it as a phrase to say, like, at first it might just seem like a bunch of concepts and a bunch of words, and what is this? And it's bina and it's chochma, and it doesn't feel like it's necessarily has anything to do with me. But when you start getting into the rochav and the omek, especially, then it's all about. Then you start to touch what it's really about, which is something that is very personal and very deep. And that's when you start to get into the inside of it. But initially, it's just a bunch of words and concepts, and but that's just the gateway. If you can get past the gate and you can get into the house, then
Yes.
then there's the pnimiut.
Yes. Agree.
All right.
Understand. Thank you.
So, thank you so much. I'm not sure if we're going to next week. I didn't discuss with Mila if we're going to do chapter 2 of the Mitteler Rebbe or if we will just continue with chapter 3. Begin chapter 3 of the Mitteler Rebbe. So, I mean, chapter 3 of Reb Hillel of Parich, which is really quite a journey.
So you let us know?
So we'll let you know and we'll post something.
Thank you.
Me neither. But either way, we'll make it accessible to you as much as possible.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Shavua
Bye
tov.
now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.